Good day to all. Today's topic is James Fenimore Cooper, the first successful and great American novelist who is famous today for his commentary on the political, racial, and social issues of America of that day. He is most famous today for his letter-stocking tales, which feature the famous Hawkeye, who is the main character of The Last of the Mohicans. Like Washington Irving, James Fenimore Cooper was affected by the surrounding area in which he grew up, namely the village of Cooperstown, which is in the surrounding area of New York, where he would listen to the legends about the Native Americans, so he was fascinated with the Indians from his early age, and he will later write about them. He was educated abroad, first in Albany and then at Yale, but he was expelled from the university because of a prank that he did to his fellow colleague. Namely, he made his door explode and he had to leave the university, and allegedly he started hating the New Englanders ever since. Because of this prank, his father was really angry, so he sent him out to sea, which was a good decision because later on his adventures at the sea will influence some of his novels. When he went back from the sea to America, he settled down, he married, and in fact, it is on the challenge from his first wife that he wrote his first novel. It was called Precaution. I hope this reminds you of at least some of the titles that Jane Austen wrote, because this novel was influenced heavily by Jane Austen, and it features an English story. It is about life in the English countryside, something which Cooper didn't know anything about. And this is why the first novel, Precaution, was not at all successful, although his wife was convinced that he could write a better novel than the one she was reading at that moment. So this is why she challenged him to begin to write. Although Precaution was a complete failure, Cooper is known as the man who never gave up his writing. He was very persistent, and in subsequent years he became very prolific. So prolific, in fact, that I had to divide his writings into three distinct periods. One of his first novels, which belongs to the first phase of his writing, is the novel about an American piece of history, which is something he knew. So this is why his second novel became so successful. It's called The Spy, and it is about the American Revolution set in the area where he grew up. And I think this is the key for its success. Unlike his first novel, this one was not influenced by Jane Austen, but by the historical romance genre of Sir Walter Scott. It was really appealing to Cooper to try to imitate Scott. He did it very well and became a very prolific writer after that. So the first phase and the first period of his writing is from 1820 to 1828. He wrote as many as 9 novels during this phase, which I further divided based on their topic so that it would be much easier for you to remember. 3 of them deal with the Native Americans, 3 deal with the sea, and 3 deal with the American history. You already know one, and this is The Spy, which belongs to the American history part. But of course, the most important for us are the novels about the Native Americans, because they all feature one and the same character, and this is Leatherstocking. Leatherstocking is a name of the main character, also known as Hawkeye. The first 3 novels which feature Leatherstocking are The Pioneers, The Last of the Mohicans, and The Prairie. Interestingly, these novels do not follow Hawkeye's life chronologically, but for example, in The Pioneers, Hawkeye is already a mature old man, in which he deals with the so-called American problem, namely that the European conquerors robbed the Native Americans of their land in order to make profit of their own and to enforce their own religion on them. So we can see even in this early novel that Cooper was very critical of the ways Europe conquered the American continent. In The Last of the Mohicans, he goes back in time and describes Hawkeye in his prime, as you will see. And in the Prairie, we see Hawkeye already old and dying, however, still speaking about the rights of the Native Americans. In The Last of the Mohicans, we were introduced with a couple of more nicknames of Letterstocking. His real name is Natty Bumppo, and he's also known as the Long Rifle. Since he lives with Indians, he has these symbolic names, that the Indians have names that are usually translated as something symbolic. So here that would be the Long Rifle and Letterstocking and Hawkeye. All these names are his Indian names. But I will speak about The Last of the Mohicans more later on. Let me introduce you to some of his works as well. As I said, 3 of the novels deal with the sea. These are The Pilot, The Red Rover, and The Water Witch. And 3 deal with American history: The Spy, his second novel, then Lionel Lincoln, and The Wept of Wishton Wish. All 9 were very successful at the time, but the Letterstocking tales were by far most popular. His second phase was from 1828 to 1840, when he moved to Europe for several years, and there he met many famous politicians and cultural figures of his age, for example, the Marquis de Lafayette, and he was so influenced because of these new acquaintances that he wrote 3 novels about Europe's politics and their wars, but these novels were not that popular in America and in fact were heavily criticized by the American press. Because of this negative criticism, Cooper was angry and he promised never to write again. He announced his decision in his letter to his countrymen, but he never fulfilled his promise. As I said at the beginning of this video, he was a man who never gave up. He continued to write in his third period from 1840 up until his death. When he returned to the Letterstocking tales in his third period to write 2 last novels, The Pathfinder and The Deerslayer. So again, they are not chronologically ordered. The Pathfinder features a middle-aged Hawkeye who almost falls in love with a young girl, but you will see that Hawkeye died childless and he never married, and there is a reason for that. And in the final novel, The Deerslayer, we go back to his youth. So The Deerslayer features the youngest Hawkeye. Basically, Cooper fills us up with details from Hawkeye's young adulthood. Natty Bumppo is a very famous character whose popularity grew because of The Last of the Mohicans. Maybe because of the romantic storyline that features here. If you saw the movie that I told you to see, because it will be much easier to follow this lecture if you saw the movie, there are some details, significant details, that are changed for the purposes of this Hollywood movie. I hope you will recognize these differences as I continue speaking. Apart from Natty Bumppo, I will now introduce other characters from The Last of the Mohicans. This is my way of introducing the storyline to you, and in my next video I will analyze the novel from the perspective of racial issues and the so-called forbidden knowledge. You will see what that is shortly. The title is The Last of the Mohicans, and it is erroneously translated to Serbian in singular as Poslednji Mohikanac instead of Poslednji Mohikanci. There are 2 of them, Chingachgook, who is the father, and he is the adoptive father of Natty Bumppo, and his son, Uncas. Chingachgook literally translates as the Great Snake. He's a great warrior, as well as Uncas, his son. In the novel, Uncas falls in love with Cora Munro, whereas in the movie it is Hawkeye who falls in love with Cora. It is significant that it is Uncas who falls in love with Cora Munro, since Cora is not altogether white. She has mixed origin, and this sparks the questions of racial identity because they enter an interracial relationship which is impossible to go on because of the American laws at the time. Next, we have Magua, who is the main antagonist in the story. His name translates as the subtle fox. He belongs to another Indian tribe, which is the Hurons, and he was expelled from his tribe because of his drunkenness by Cora's father, Colonel Munro, and now Magua is bent on his revenge. He promises to marry Cora, and he literally kidnaps her, but in the process he actually falls in love with her, only to be disappointed when he finds out that Cora does not share his hatred of the white people. Then we have Colonel Munro, who is Cora's and Alice's father. He is a Scottish commander of the English forces in America at Fort William Henry, and he is quite a dubious character, in fact. He was married while he was in the British West Indies to a black woman who was Cora's mother, hence Cora's mixed origin. She is half white, half black. And when he went to Scotland, he married a white woman and she became Alice's mother. And there is a sharp contrast between Cora and Alice because of this. Cora's darkness is what defines her, whereas Alice is defined by her paleness, and she's blonde, she's very weak, she's a typical ideal woman of that age. And Cora frequently refers to Alice's specific beauty as the ideal she would like to achieve as well. In the novel, Major Duncan Hayward is in love with Alice, not with Cora. They changed this for the movie in order to create an interesting love triangle situation between Hawkeye, Cora, and Duncan, but it's not the same in the novel. Then we have the already mentioned Major Duncan Hayward, who in the movie is described as a clumsy, I think, and not that likable character, whereas in the novel he is a true, noble, and valiant hero. And finally, there are some historical facts that Cooper inserted into his novel, The Last of the Mohicans. One of those would be a famous event, the massacre of the English forces by the Huron Indians. Remember the tribe to which Magua belongs. And this massacre was not at all necessary, but nobody could stop these Indians from butchering the English because they were so mad. The novel is set during the French-Indian War. I will speak about that in my next video. And the Indians sided with the French mostly, but there were some of them who sided with the English. However, the Indians were so afraid of the English that they felt the need to kill them, even though the fort was already won. A historical character who appears in The Last of the Mohicans is General Montcalm, who was the commander of the French forces during the war in which the novel is set, and that is, just let me mention it again, the French and Indian War. So this is just a short introduction to the novel, and so that you know the plot, and hopefully if you saw the movie it will be really easy for you to follow my analysis, which again will focus on racial identity, interracial marriages, and the so-called forbidden knowledge.